Who is this year's Tim Hightower, Damian Williams? Who's going to come out of the ether to be a running back impact? That and more this week on the Football Guys Dynasty Show. And Jordan, we're going to be naming our 5 favorites to come from the woodwork. Who would you like to start with? Who is going to be a factor here in the fantasy playoffs?
Let's give it Corey Clement. I mean, this is the guy we saw at the Senior Bowl a few years ago, like coming full circle on this. And with Zeke banged up, Pollard banged up, he was already having touches. He out carried Zeke this week. Again, we could, a little skepticism on that game script wise and all that stuff, but fully involved in the offense. And like, they're going to have to trust him in the event that there's a Zeke injury or a Pollard injury. And we've already seen a little bit of proof of concept of what it would look like. Like, this is a situation that could look pretty good down the stretch if you have to do a spot start or two. And with all the COVID stuff, they're already banged up. They have a lot of COVID stuff going on around the league. I mean, any one of these guys, we could go real deep on the show, but we're hitting 5. Any one of them could be a difference maker here down the stretch.
Yeah, and I will say 2 things about a lot of the players we're going to reference. Number 1, fresh legs factor. So you're going to have Corey Clement look good, and part of that is Ezekiel Elliott is running at 3rd gear. You're right. I mean, he's beat up. He's logging a lot of snaps. And frankly, I think they need to give him a rest. And one good piece of news for Dallas that I kind of wonder if this is going to come home, not this week, maybe next week, and then maybe even higher probability week 17, is what if Dallas has things locked up? And by that, I mean the division, and then they don't really have a chance at a bye. So another loss by them, maybe just another week or 2 of data points, but they could have it locked up within the division, and then they could also have no chance for a bye. And I just wonder, could they get Ezekiel Elliott a little healthier and rested for, maybe it's not multiple games, maybe it's one juicy Tim Hightower type game for Corey Clement in week 17 or something like that. So just keep an eye out on that. And Tony Pollard, I don't know about you, Jordan, color me skeptical. They need to put him on ice and see, can we get him to the playoffs? He's a non-essential, and I just think they need to get this running back depth chart right, and that might be a streaming start for Corey Clement down the stretch here. One of our favorites that I'm going to nominate here is Peyton Barber. Kenyon Drake, injured, out for the year. What I loved about this and why I thought going big on the waiver wire for Peyton Barber, I think it was a couple weeks ago, was the prudent play, is because I love injury away status with a running back that has a pedigree of starting in the NFL, and then you're going to get the rest of the season as an injury away status. That's the combo. I know the Raiders are reeling as an offense and as a team, but Peyton Barber has the skill set to run with this thing. I know Jalen Richard is getting healthier. They brought in Trey Ragas, but the point is Peyton Barber would, and we saw it even this year with 20+ touches. So Josh Jacobs, I love the PPR value for now with no Kenyon Drake, but Peyton Barber would benefit if anything were to happen to Jacobs.
Yeah, I mean, this situation is totally breaking right. We'll see with Richard coming back, but again, I still think this points more towards the Barber centric, the Jacobs centric, running centric aspect of the offense would definitely go towards Barber. We've seen that already. We know sort of how that offense would churn. We've seen Jacobs out, and we kind of know what the reaction was. Again, that was pre, racist email John Gruden firing, but yeah, I mean, so but I think we would generally see the same, a very similar approach. And we see how they don't have a lot to offer this offense right now, especially with Waller out. Like, it's Renfro, it's Jacobs, and that could be a really lucrative situation for Barber for sure.
And the next one's right up your alley, which is Ramondre Stevenson.
Oh yeah,
they're running a committee. And Brandon Bolden's going to have his role either way. But, man, if you consolidate Stevenson into what Harris and Stevenson are both enjoying in New England, a run-centric team, the rookie quarterback factor, weather's getting cold, time to log some wins with that defense, that could be 20+ touches a week, maybe even 25+ touches a week. And we're talking about a high-end running back one.
Totally. Without a doubt there. I was wondering if it was going to be this week because you have Harris potentially being out. He got banged up in that Bills game. And we kind of saw what Stevenson could do in that game. You gave him basically for a chunk of that game, he was their only running back. And we saw sort of what he could do. Looks like though that Harris limited early on. You know, I think they play Saturday night this week, so we get an early practice
Hamstring
report,
though.
limited.
Hamstrings are tricky, and hamstrings are classic, or groins or calves for partial games. So maybe if you're in a flex situation, it's, you know, Stevenson or somebody else. That's the type of situation where you break ties and you say, if this breaks right, that's how you can win a fantasy matchup. Maybe you have no business, as you said, you know, maybe through a Thursday, through part of Saturday, you're like, this is not going well for me. And Stevenson maybe gets a run when Harris exit and they're ahead in the game or whatever the environment.
And we know what the semifinals week matchup is for the week 16 matchup. It's tough saying week 16 semifinals. It's usually week 15. This is we got to bump it back a week, but
we're all recalibrating.
It's Buffalo, right? I mean, they get Buffalo again, and they get them at home this time. So maybe it won't be the weather situation that happened last time, but you know, this is like there's a chance for a big game here coming from either of these guys in the event that either one of them is injured. They can make a difference down the stretch.
Yeah, and the theme, if you're sensing it already, are players. I guess Corey Clement doesn't really qualify. He did have a receiving centric role with the Eagles for his best moment in time. But Dearness Johnson, this is another one with Kareem Hunt. Now he's working through an injury. Nick Chubb has been beat up a little bit, and Dearness Johnson, we've already seen him do this with a clarified start this season. And it's another environment where the Browns have injuries all over the place. Their passing game is a question mark. You know they're going to run the ball. And Dearness Johnson, a clarified start would be an auto start for us in the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw him have a 22 carry game and 2 receptions in that game, so 24 touches. That was week 7 against Denver. We saw him get 26 touches week 10 against New England in a loss. And a huge loss. They lost by 38 in that game. So we've seen already what this looks like. It's 25 plus touch, 24 to 26, that range of touches, and north of $150 as well in his range of outcomes. You throw in a touchdown and a couple catches in there, like that can really, really move the needle for you. So he's one of the ones that I was proactively doing. And listen, all these, like we're talking about all these guys, like I think you should really go down this exercise of you should be mining. This isn't just the end all be all of this list. You should be mining running back 3 spots right now, because with all of the COVID stuff going on, and
if one guy skirts through and he doesn't get put on the list, that's it. He's the one starting. Look at Miami right now, right? And I don't have faith in Miami to actually produce a high level game like a lot of these guys were discussing their potential. But the point is, it could be last man standing in certain weeks. And that's why we've talked about before. And I actually think with the schedule and timing, with now having Saturday games, you have to be up on this every day. This is not a non-negotiable. These are the money weeks. And so the waiver wire is only the very beginning of player acquisition and roster movement. You can bid big on somebody and something changes by Friday and you cut that guy to get somebody else.
Right.
That's totally fine.
Right.
Again, it's free. Waiver dollars are like Monopoly money. You just basically got to use them.
Right.
And if you don't, they just go into the ether like tumbleweeds. So I do want to mention, just one thing about the Kareem Hunt thing. High ankle sprain. So do we really think he's coming back soon?
No.
Probably not. I mean, couple weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, playoffs. I mean, all this time range is in span. So this could be very similar to Peyton Barber of saying Dearness Johnson is for the rest of the year. And frankly, I mean, I said I need to see proof. When I rostered Dearness Johnson earlier in the season, I needed to see Kareem Hunt back, healthy, and proven. And he hasn't even done that yet. And we've seen the upside with Dearness Johnson to say this is one of the priority running back 3s if you go down that far with your roster depth.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like all of these guys are really interesting. Royce Freeman's another one in terms of David Johnson on his way back. Rex Burkhead looked like he's going to miss time. And he's maybe the if we had to like look down this list, I guess maybe him and Stevenson might be the two most unproven guys. We kind of know what the other guys are, and maybe you could say that Freeman is disappointed to an extent that we know who he is. I think you and I both. There's a big guy that can move. Thread that goes through this list.
He was in a 1A 1B role for a span of time in Denver. So no, that didn't work out. But yeah, I mean, he is like a big man that can move and can catch. And you want the guy that's going to catch passes in Houston. You just do. They're going to throw 40 plus times a week, most likely. So I think a David Johnson, older running back, coming back from COVID, and you know what? If you're not at 100%, maybe you're out there and you're just a little slower, and maybe you're just a little more apt to maybe be injured. You know what I mean? But the point is, like you said, you got to go down the depth chart dial and say, if this guy's the last man, that's why no frills, right? No frills at tight end. If you're third quarterback in a start one, what are you doing? I actually dropped Taylor Heineke this past week, and I know he got dinged up, but I was doing it because I was sick of having a third quarterback on my roster that I would never start. Like some guy's too good, trade deadline is gone, but I wanted to pick up another backup running back. So again, you got to do what's best for your team. If he ends up on someone else's team and waivers this week, so be it, because I'm certainly not dropping the running backs. So yeah, I just think you have to think proactively like that. And Royce Freeman, I know he's got a stink on him. I know he averaged like 1.5 yards per carry. We're not getting a lot of running backs for their yards per carry. Let's just say that out in the open. It gives you goal line and touchdown opportunities. It gives you snaps in the passing game, and that's what provides value. It's not ask Jeff Wilson from this last week, right? I mean, he got like, that's always what I call the frozen rope stat line or whatever, where it's like, 11 for 57. How many points did he have? 5.7.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You just rolled Yahtzee of the least efficient stat line you can possibly have as a running back. Would you fumble too?
Little 3.7 action.
Let's pour one out for Godwin Igwebuike while we're doing this, right? I mean, and who? Oh, Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson is also streamers gone wrong. Right. It's the film you don't want to watch. Streamers gone wrong. He had 3 drops in like the first 3 drives of the game. It's like, this is not going well.
All of his targets were on target.
Yeah, why don't you just fumble and get benched for Austin Waller while you're at it? LaMichael Pirines been off the radar for years, and let's get this guy into the game because you can't hack it.
Totally.
That really hurt my soul. Both of those guys hurt my soul. Because you were up for it. I remember you tweeted something about, Iggy, I'm up for 24 touches this week.
I live for this.
They would have had to play about 9.5 quarters to do that. He was not on track for that.
He was not.
Chase Reynolds had other ideas, my friend.
He did.
Yeah. This is Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 82 of the Football Guys Dynasty Show. I want to remind you this week, as we have the past few weeks, we're supported and sponsored this episode by Props Fantasy. They got a tournament of champions, and a reminder that you can sync your existing team. So whether you make playoffs or not, you can challenge your league mates, your friends, people from other leagues with your existing roster. Play beyond your dynasty or redraft league here on Props Fantasy. You can sync your teams, Sleeper, Yahoo, create a challenge, crown yourself an undisputed champion. You can also register to win a signed Aaron Rodgers helmet. That's becoming more valuable by the day with all these rock star performances. And again, the more challenges you enter, the more chances you have to win. So go sign up at propsfantasy.com/guys.
Hey, let me throw a little love to the chat room too. Some recommendations here for other guys. Marlon Mack, Ramondre Stevenson, Dearness Johnson, Jordan Howard is a good one as well. A couple other guys too. Carlos Hyde, given that they have a good matchup here coming up.
Ronald Jones was one I wanted to
Ronald
highlight,
Jones too.
Talk about a guy talking fresh legs, barely playing.
Totally. Yep.
Barely playing. I will say, I do want to share one quote you said before the show, which is, how many running backs do you have more confidence in than Leonard Fournette before going into the playoffs? You said it's Jonathan Taylor and Enlist.
Right. Yeah.
Fournette, monster. And I'll remind folks, the two of us, we couldn't stop talking about Leonard Fournette a couple off seasons ago when he was going like 5th round of startups.
Remember when that guy couldn't catch?
There he is. He couldn't catch, couldn't stay healthy, and wasn't productive in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
We'll get him on a better team. He's looking a little better. He's like the perfect Tom Brady guy, right? High pedigree. Brady's like, I get to play with a top 5 draft pick.
I got this thing.
What is
Yeah.
this?
Totally.
He's like the anti-Patriots running back in every form, in every way. Big name guy, big recruit. He's like the anti Jonas Gray. Just, played at LSU, 5-star guy, comes in the NFL. Anyway, elite pick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Great stuff.
It's yeah. I mean, I think you should really spend, and I'm interested. Like, I think that story you told about Heineke. There are guys that, like, given how much COVID we sort of know is out there, like, I do think that, like, I think you've got to hedge your quarterbacks in super flex. Like, I think you've got to be really like, you can't waste a roster spot for more than like 24 hours over the next, and that's might sound extreme, but like, you should really, really, really be focused. And especially as your team start going away, right? When you start losing playoff games, you're going to have more time to focus that energy. You should really focus in on optimizing, and that's optimizing with all the stuff that's moving. You don't want to be in a nightmare scenario of like the Higbee situation this week, right? Where you had Higbee in your lineup, and he's a false positive on Monday, right? That's like
you have no
horrible.
outs. Well, I
right,
guess you had the out of who took his place again? I can't remember.
Kendall Blanton.
Yeah.
Benjamin was a guy that you could make. Maybe you had AJ Green on your bench you could pivot to if for some reason he was in a flex.
But if it was your starting tight end, though.
I know. I mean, it was just
it was
a horrible
Blanton or bust. And then what do? Do you potentially, I mean, if you didn't have a spot, if it wasn't IR possibilities, do you cut Higbee? I mean, so it's just, it's a bad spot. And that you say that all the time. And, I don't say it as much, but it's critically important, which is now with the Saturday games, you need to have checkpoints and the factor of known versus unknown. That you have, like, so if it's relatively close, take the guy you have full information on instead of waiting until, I mean, I know it sounds great to have the hammer on Sunday night or Monday night, to finish off the week. And man, I'm down by 3 points. He'll get 3 points. What is the chance he doesn't even play?
Right.
We just got a real life example. And so when in doubt, earlier and going all the way through the pre-game process of, all right, he's good to go. Because you know what? In that 90 minutes, something happens. You can just pivot to someone playing later. But to say no to a guy playing Saturday versus a guy playing Monday night, that you're playing with danger. You're playing with danger when you keep passing on guys. I'm not saying play your B team. That's not what we're talking about. I mean, but in general, you need to have a very pragmatic approach about these lineup decisions. And we've said it before. I mean, I will say about the Corey Clement thing, that's an exact example. I got so many shares for free in the 48 hours leading up to kickoff last week. And now we'll see what he goes for in waivers, in medium depth dynasty leagues. But I mean, in the Friday, Saturday window, you get some optimal pickups to shift your roster around. And now you got Corey Clement where, the tea leaves were not turning positive for Pollard. And we'll see what happens this week in more twists and turns. But like you said, a positive test, it spreads to a second guy that's in that same positional group, and boom. You could be down to the screws, and it could be someone available for free that you may even flex this week.
Yeah, and like I'm neurotic at this point. Like, if you've got friends, if you're in group me's, right? I have push notifications on guys getting put on COVID. You know what I mean? From Schefter and Rep. Like, really, I've become pretty focused on this. It's a 3-week sprint, essentially, but I think you have to sort of optimize and just keep optimizing. Can I touch one other thing that that we were talking about before? I didn't get a chance to mention. Can you tell me the amount of receivers? So remember, let's rewind a second to 2018. Leonard Fournette, fresh off of 26 targets in 8 games. Do you want to guess how many people? So 2019, 2020, and 2021. How many running backs have more receptions than Leonard Fournette since that time?
Well, he hasn't missed very many games, so that's going to help him. I'm going to say 3. I'm going to go 3.
Well, your first inclination was right. It was 2. Do you want to guess who they are?
Well, see, McCaffrey hasn't played enough.
But
you know why? I don't know. One dominant season.
McCaffrey's 4. McCaffrey's 4.
Okay.
So that good thoughts.
Our boy Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler's number 1 with 204.
Oh, Alvin Kamara.
And Alvin Kamara has 200.
Yeah, there you
Leonard Fournette has $1.74. You want to guess who number 5 is? J.D. McKissick, which is just an amazing thing.
He's got a truckload.
Zeke at 147, top 6 there. So yeah, I mean, just when you look at these things, like it's like Jacobs is going to be the same way, right? We might look back in 2 years and be like, all right, everyone was like, he can't catch. They bring in Kenyon Drake, and all he does is catch 4 balls a game.
Watch Jacobs last week. It looks like he catches the ball just fine.
Oh, he does.
Just fine.
And he does.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, someone put in the chat, Christian McCaffrey, got put on the COVID list. He's on IR. Isn't that like adding insult to injury here? Like, how does that matter? Like, do you even have to report that? He's out. That's like saying someone that tore his ACL. Oh, by the way, they tweaked their other ankle. Thanks for the report. Vital. This is vital news.
Guy slept poorly, and he's dealing with a stiff back.
Yeah. Actually, I had it was light on trades, as you would imagine, but I still found a couple, and I wanted to ask you because this is interesting on a couple different fronts. Okay, so this is a Zealots League. If you're not familiar, and this is long ago Dynasty, these were some of the most like the original, maybe not original, but they've been around a long time with Dynasty diehards. A lot of them are for no money, I believe. It was just for the love of the game. They're like deep IDP, all this immersive stuff. And so this is the format. It's one quarterback, but I think some of these are like 16 leagues, 16 teams and things like that. So they traded Deshaun Watson. They're trying to make a run, and they needed to supplement running back. Deshaun Watson, Miles Sanders, and a few late picks, so like 5th, 6th rounder types, for Leonard Fournette and Devonta Freeman.
Can you believe?
Now hold on a second. Hold on.
I'm so tuned into what you're going to say right now. I'm already.
No, you don't know what I'm going to say. It's just added context. But they mentioned that they were going to give it one last ride, and they sort of implied that they're giving this a run. It's not that they have a bad team or anything, but they're giving this a run. But their intention is not to stay in the league, I think, after the league. So there's a few things to unpack here, but just talk about the trade itself. So they're pushing chips in. They need running back, and Freeman, sneaky starter, and Leonard Fournette, as you mentioned, there's only one other guy you'd have more confidence in.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this was interesting, like the Freeman angle of this, like circa, I don't know, let's call it last year, been like, all right, hey, Devonta Freeman, you're going to trust him in a playoff week. You'd be like, what and what? Like some secondary sport he's going to play. I didn't think it was going to be fantasy football.
Take up boxing? Is he going to do the boxing angle?
Right. This is interesting. I mean, the ethics of it are one thing. I mean, I don't think it's a horrible trade.
It is start one, but Watson has big value that, I mean, if he's back, is he worth this whole thing?
Maybe, but flags fly forever, right? That would be the thing that I would say. And how much do you trust Sanders? If Fournette ranks,
he's a complete wild card dart throw at this point 100%. On how his career goes.
100%. I think I like Fournette over Sanders for the rest of Dynasty, right? If you told me who do I
for the rest of Dynasty time
in a startup draft and I'm on the clock, I got to pick one. It's absolutely Fournette over Sanders.
Right. Could Sanders be that guy when we get to the offseason? We're talking about Sanders is like, man, round 10? Yeah, give me the Sanders profile.
But he could be the guy that is a potential cut candidate in the offseason. Like, I don't like, there's a wide range of outcomes.
I know I'm more team Sanders than you, but I mean, come on.
It's not that I'm not team Sanders, but like they go from giving him 22 touches to playing him behind Boston Scott the next week. Like
do you trust everything the Eagles are doing? Are they really the one you're going to say assume rational coaching?
I mean, but the same thing, we would have said the same thing about Leonard Fournette, and Leonard Fournette got cut. You know what I mean? So I'm saying that a little bit tongue in cheek.
I see where you're going with this.
I got Leonard Fournette comes, man.
So he's the next one. I got it.
But so no, he's all over the place. That's the easiest way to say that. So I think Fournette's clearly a tier above him. I'm fascinated by Fournette's offseason. And I mean, and Freeman.
Do you think Freeman do you think he is playing well enough to go from sitting out there? He got an opportunity with the Giants last year. It took a while. He really was not the first, second option. He was signed, I believe, after Le'Veon Bell, right? And after Latavius Murray. Mm-hmm. I believe he was the third one, and he looks the best, and he outlasted the others in terms of opportunities. Do you think he's earned enough to get an actual shot next year? Or is he just going to be in the same type of situation of like a Band-Aid emergency break?
I doubt it.
Okay. Yeah,
I doubt that he's a week
right.
1 starter.
So you may literally play this week and it's Devonta Freeman one time.
Mm-hmm.
You have one rep.
And that might be what this trade is. It might be, and he might go
now. Fournette, we think obviously has a lot more going for him than that. And frankly, this trade could be relatively even depending on how Fournette's opportunities shake out over the next 2 seasons. So, because quarterback, I know this format quarterback does have more value than a stock kind of format, but again, a couple years of strong strong running back production can make it all be okay.
Yeah, I mean the difference between and who's to say that Watson, like if you're not coming back, I mean that's the interesting part. Like there's a commissioner dynamic.
There's a variable here. No, I know. Yeah.
But I mean I don't think it's unfair to the point that I would veto it even if I knew the guy wasn't coming back. I don't think you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't. Right. It's not something that I'm worried about.
Well, let me ask you this on the angle of I would say I had one league. It was strictly based on the environment of the league that I left. And it had nothing to do with the competitiveness of my team. It had nothing to do with anything. It was my enjoyment, and it was the ecosystem of communication and just the overall vibe of the league. I love the format. Now, I gave it one whole season past when I thought I was going to kind of decide, but I did not make any moves that were sort of in this vein of like my consciousness was like, oh, let's make a run. I viewed it as dynasty. I left the team in the same position as if I were coming back for the following season or following 10 seasons. Now, what are your thoughts on, hey, mentally, this is kind of your last ride. Let's say I've personally never decided that in season. So do you think it's valid to make moves like this that may be a little shorter sighted? Is that valid and fair? Or do you think you should view it as, okay, I got to pretend like I'm staying?
I don't know. I don't think that, would I do it versus what I would recommend to somebody else is a little bit different. Like in your case, I mean, you have a certain reputation because of what you do for a living that you don't want to necessarily tarnish, right? And how you leave a team. So there's that aspect. But if you're competing in a league at arm's length with other people and you're just, and that's not against the rules, right? If you don't have to pay a deposit in advance to trade an asset or trade in November or whatever, right? If you don't have to do those things, I mean, I think that you play it out and I think you're fine. I mean, some people might have different moral aspects to it. I mean, again, I probably wouldn't trash a team on the way out because it's kind of similar to an example with you. I wouldn't want to make a bunch of enemies, but
I will say the trashing a team, there's ways to, like, Fournette isn't really like acquiring I'm trying to think of who would be a true this year only type.
Royce Freeman, right? Like this is, you're not
doing
this
I guess if you were trading Watson for Devonta Freeman, right? I mean, we talked about Freeman might be one game. And you're trading. So Fournette offers a lot more overall.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't even think if you put James Conner in there for Leonard Fournette, I mean, I still think it's it's above board per se.
Right.
I mean, there's still some legs there where I'm trying to think of who. Like, let's say Saquon Barkley was out, like Devontae Booker. Like, to me, if you put Booker in for Fournette. Yeah, I mean, that is you're really venturing a little too far down the rabbit hole.
So we're talking like 20% more than what Barkley's offering was what Booker would get, right? Is that what we're talking
about? I see what you did there. I see what you did. It's like when they put the rabbit actually into the rabbit stew in the cartoons. What are you doing there? Chopping up carrots, chopping up onions, celery. All right, we're missing the rabbit in the rabbit stew. Okay, we've got one other trade here. And these are, again, always tricky. One included a marginal pick. One included, it was just straight up. And I always find, I can't remember if this was the conversation with you, but the straight up same position deals are the most interesting in my view, because no one asked for a pick.
Right.
Neither side, they thought they were dead even in the exact same tier. So this was Stefon Diggs for AJ Brown. Straight up, no chaser.
Give me Diggs.
That is probably not the consensus opinion.
It's fine.
No,
Yeah. I mean, here's the reason I would say Diggs is like I think he's got difference making different, especially if I'm contending right now. Like I think he's got difference making potential in his range of outcomes. That's not to say that Brown doesn't, but I think Brown is to some degree suffering from what Chase has suffered from, and what we may end up seeing with Chase. And as we and I wish we could go back with some of the data that we have now and test it on prior years, but I suspect something that's been going on in Dynasty for a long time is that we've been inflating guys who to really, really high levels. Amari Cooper is a good example of this back in, when he was a rookie. And there's been a couple of other ones where the guys have really gotten inflated based on what they've done as rookies and what they've done as second year guys. And in reality, what was happening is that they were just hyper efficient to an almost unrepeatable level. Right. And so that's usually, it is almost always touchdown variance that they're capitalizing from. We saw that with AJ Brown, right, when he was actually producing more like an expected wide receiver 3 in terms of all of his stats, but he was producing wide receiver 1 production because he was doubling up his touchdowns. We saw that with Chase.
My memory of AJ Brown in that breakout season was taking a slant and 3 or 4 times
65 yards for a touchdown.
There's no one there.
Correct.
And it's not that he's slow, but the point is there was no one home on the backs, like the backside safety that makes that an 18 or 20 yard gain up, Olay, and it turns into 60 yards. That happened a few times.
It was like the Brashad Perriman touchdown this week, right? It was exactly what happened.
So that's what I remember from that season. It was like, he's a yak monster.
And he did the same
when there's
thing
no
last
one
year,
around, it's relatively easy. That doesn't happen for a lot of wide receivers a handful of times in a season.
Right. So that's really my concern with that.
If you're the cheetah, right. I mean, maybe.
Right. That's my or Brashad Perriman.
Or Jalen Guyton if you've got a howitzer throwing you the ball.
That thing came in from
65
the ionosphere.
On a line. It's like that Michael Vick video where he throws it out of the stadium.
Yeah.
My God.
So I would take Diggs, and the reason is just that the target volume's higher. I am less of an ageist at wide receiver, and I am less of a. I care less about value too.
The older guys are
he's
proven.
got sustained. He's got sustained.
This offseason is going to be fascinating. It's every offseason. But if they were already fading Mike Evans last year, what's going to happen this year?
Oh, it's going to be crazy.
Are we going to be able to get him as our wide receiver 4? Because that's pretty exciting.
I have a question. So I have a question. I didn't tell you this in advance, but I got to spin this on you.
Oh no,
Cooper Kupp. Yeah. Where do you think he ranks in ADP in the offseason? He's going to be coming off of
among the wide receiver position.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But he's going to be way too old to ever do anything again, Jordan. Right. Is it interesting that he's enveloped his own role, but he's also like the Blob. He's just sort of immersed himself over the Robert Woods role as well. Right. He's like, I'll do both. Right. I'll do both. Can OBJ and Van Jefferson just do some deep overs and stuff like that? I'll do the rest. Don't worry. I got this. I think outside the top 7 or 8. I mean,
so I went back and I looked in the basically the worst anyone has ever been in terms of, since we go back to 08 in terms of ADP, the wide receiver 1 finisher, like the worst they've ever been is like wide receiver 5 in ADP.
But is that by age? Like, what was the oldest guy though?
And I think it might have been, because here's
what about Antonio Brown when he was up in that 28 range? He was still in this, like he was still churning it out.
They were still, but he came from high. Right. So that's the difference. Like Kupp has to elevate above all these guys where they came from. They were up there. And
what was Kupp at last offseason?
Like in the 20s. And so
so how much is he going to go up? And now you're going to make someone that's older rise.
Right.
Can I just say, like, please tell me if I'm off my rocker. I literally got chills watching the Monday night game on Tuesday morning when I saw the Matt Stafford goal line out to Cooper Kupp.
Oh, yeah.
Against, like, was that just me? Just perfect. Throw. Like, literally the coverage could not be any better. That guy should go home and sleep well and say, I got beat by excellence.
Right.
I literally, there was a 6-inch, like, you remember in what was it? The jerk. When the guy's teaching him how to do the weight guessing, he's like, yeah. So they get any prize you want, any right here, but it's below the stereo and to the left of the rubber pencils. In this basic 3-inch area, which includes the eraser, but not the fake clown nose. Like he was just doing all this stuff. So that was like, this little area is what you need. And it's like, if Stafford throws it 6 inches behind, it's tipped away. 6 inches in front, it probably carries Cooper Kupp out of bounds.
Yep.
And you know where it was? Right in the honey hole.
Right.
Literally right there. And you can look at little plays like that. And sometimes that's the difference between winning and losing. I always think about that Any Given Sunday speech with Pacino, when it's like, we fight and claw for the inches. It's all about the inches.
Yeah.
I need to go listen to that speech. But anyway, but that throw, I know a lot of people get impressed by the Herbert throw. Again, it was awesome. But to me, the absolute preciseness of like Breeze and Brady to freaking Mike Evans, that throw, who makes that throw, B, who completes the throw, and B, what 6'5" wide receivers get it up top like that, just nonchalant. Oh, this is a touchdown.
Right. Do you think Brady's back?
What?
Do you think Brady comes back next year?
Oh, you mean he changes teams?
No. Like, that he plays next year. Like, do you think he's going to play? Because he's absolutely playing well enough to play. Like, he's playing at an MVP level.
I think you have to see some level of erosion before that's even a conversation point.
Right.
I mean, I think he's going to play a season where he's not playing really, really, really well, and then that could potentially be the last season. I mean, can you argue he's playing
if they win this year that he goes out on top? Right, that's my concern.
He's had many chances to go out on top, Jordan.
That's true. But he hasn't been like 48 when he had the chance to win.
44. You're like, I'd like him to be healthy to hang out with his kids.
Yeah.
Soon that conversation is going to be grandkids. So soon it's a grandkids type conversation. I don't know. He just had a couple scrambles, Jordan, that were more athletic than he's shown in 20 years.
I know. It's that TB12 method, man.
It's the avocado ice cream, as the kids like to joke about. All right, but yeah, I think the wide receiver conversation is pretty fascinating because you have so many older guys, and by old I mean 28 plus, that are highly productive, and yet we are gonna see. Get ready for it. Strap up. We're gonna see guys like T. Higgins. We're gonna see guys like DJ Moore or Jalen Waddle or CeeDee Lamb. All these guys go ahead of a lot of the names that we have come to know and love. I wonder if Tyreek Hill at 28 is going to get the age discount double check.
I'm gonna wait the longest I've ever waited in Dynasty on a wide receiver starting up this year. Like, it might be double-digit rounds, and we're gonna rack up like 3 Hall of Famers and just be like, "Come get us!" Like, it's gonna be.
I thought Mike Evans in round 4 or so last offseason was pretty saucy. It sounds like he's going to drop again. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer?
He's inconsistent, Chad. He lacks consistency.
Boom bust, aka scores touchdowns in bunches, aka capable of 30-point games. All right, I have one. Yeah, I have one quote from the Dynasty Forum this week. Do want to remind you to subscribe, rate, and review for our Dynasty show on all of your podcasting platforms. It really helps us. And again, we're going to go to the different feeds. We're right now on the Audible feed. There you go. And what is it? Shop.footballguys.com. Jordan's sporting the gear. You got it on the early pre-sale there. It's available. Christmas items. You still got Chex Watch, close to a couple weeks. Still time to get that. Yep, there it is. Jordan putting it in the chat there. So shop.footballguys.com. A lot of gear. Got dad gear. Got Sorry Joe. We're going to be adding to that over the course of time as well. They've done a great job putting that store front together with all of the Football Guys merchandise.
There's been a request for a Chad beard, like the James Harden beard shirt. So I'm gonna talk to Joe. We'll have to have a rendition done. We'll have to get Derek to do a rendition for us. So
yeah, unfortunately, I learned with 6 months of growing, the beard doesn't go vertically up top. You cannot actually replace the receding hairline. Does not go down to your chin. Doesn't work that way. We've got one quote. Zealots has degenerated into a bunch of guys. So take the Zealots part out, but degenerated into a bunch of guys who would rather win trades than win games.
100%.
So trading almost never happens. So there's two parts of this. The inactivity part of trading never happens in leagues. That's super frustrating. But how about I'm trying to win trades. I'm trying to pretty roster syndrome. And it's not actually about getting to the playoffs and winning your league. And to be fair, Jordan, the league we're in together, I will say 5 years ago, if that was my own team, that I would have definitely, some of these, you're like, sneak into the playoffs. Like, what's the value of that? Well, the value is you have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not in the playoffs, you have zero chance to win.
Yeah.
And the more times, deductive reasoning, the more times you make the playoffs, the more chances you have to advance, make the finals, and win the finals. And the thing I've learned, you don't have to be, the number of times the best team wins the title, it's not as often as you think. Even
it's
with
directly
a bye,
proportional to how many games you play.
you still have to win 2 games,
yeah.
and you can't really have a down week. You're going to be playing a team that is good enough to get there and play against you. So I like these teams that I used to be like, 5 seed, 6 seed. If I win, I'm going to play the top seed. Like, what's all this stuff? But you know what? You win. You can win.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? There's 6 teams. So to pretend like you got a 50% chance to win, short-sighted and wrong, and to pretend like you have no chance, even if you're limping in, you have a chance. And we talked about running backs at the top of the show. 1 week from now, 5 days from now, you might be looking at a guy that is an auto start and putting up 20 plus points that you weren't planning on earlier in the week.
And
that's
this
how
year
you
in
win.
particular, right? This year just reeks of crazy things happening, right? Like, I have teams that are really good, and thank God they have buys, because I don't want to. Like, it's one less week I got to deal with this, right? Like, literally, that's at least I'll be playing for money at some point along the way, right? That's literally how I feel on these things. But to address the question, I would rather win, right? And I want to win. Not trades. Like, I want to win the league, and I want to, like,
the trades need to foster more winning.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily have to mean you're trading a pick or a prospect for a producer. There's more trades than that help you win. But yeah, I have definitely made over the last 12 months different trades, or a wider spectrum of types of trades than I did previous to that. And the results speak for themselves.
Yes.
And it's really, and it's kind of like and it's not selling out your team and you never have any rookie picks or any of this type of stuff, but focus. And it's really about content too. Hey, I've covered in my content, I have covered the upcoming draft class. It's freaking mid-December, and I've covered it less this year than ever before. Mm-hmm. And the reason is we got months and months to talk about that. And there's not really any utility in talking about it in mid-December. There really isn't. It's interesting for sure, but you know what? How about you try to optimize your roster right now? And when you get to January, we can do all the conjecture on who's going to be a first round pick and who's going to be the sleeper running back prospect and all that stuff. So let's finish our season. And once you're eliminated, get some stash players and then move forward. It's a very pragmatic, what is the most important thing this week or this month? It's very basic. And I would say it takes self-control from a content we're producing content, audio, written, all that kind of stuff. But it really is interesting because it can be easy to go off in a million different spiderweb directions of saying, let's talk about prospects and NFL free agency and all this stuff. Let's try to win as many leagues as possible and finish as highly as possible. And we have plenty of time to, recalibrate for 2022. Plenty.
Yeah. And I even go as far as I'm not going to talk about rookies until February 1st, because you can do the whole month of January. And I actually think the most advantageous thing that you can do in January isn't to study the rookie class, right? Because honestly, if you get to the point where the draft happens and you get draft pedigree, like, that's going to tell you a substantial amount of that. So a lot of what we're doing is just speculating, but beyond that, that's a whole another conversation for a different day. There's a lot of opportunity in that month after the league where people want to talk about the draft. They want to sort of move on to the next thing. For you to actually sit study what happened, find where you can, look for arbitrage opportunities, look for efficiencies that are going to go up or that are going to go down, and identify trade candidates. So really look into your team, go through each one of your teams and talk about the needs that you have and how you can address them, and sort of look at all these things, making trades around the margins. And I did a whole bunch of trades last year in January that absolutely reshaped my team. And it was one trade that led to another, that led to another, that led to another. And then ultimately, like I didn't contend at all last year, and I picked in the top 3 of the draft, and now I lead the league in points, right? And all of that's because of deals I made in January and setting myself up and using all those opportunities. So I think that, that time of year is absolutely best spent. We spend too much time talking about rookies, probably, if we're being in all honesty. But to bring it back to the thing about the winning the trades thing, like this and like you and I might think that this is like an easy answer to this. There are people that play Dynasty to trade. That is what they do it for. That is why they are in it. There's a certain segment of the Dynasty community that just plays to build for the future, right? That's what they do. So in a 12-team league, you might actually be playing not against 11 other teams that are trying to win it. You might be playing against 8. You might be one of 9 teams actually competing. So instead of
playoff odds,
yeah, right,
better than usual,
totally. And when you think about that, right, when the implications of that are if you can get in, again, you should
be pushing for the playoffs because it's easier because you have these fishing weights at the bottom of the pool. Absolutely. They aren't coming up. They're planning for 2023 right now.
Absolutely.
They're just giving you better chances. You're probably going to go 2-0 against them next year. Why? Yeah. Building for the future. Hashtag. I mean, right. Yeah. And I will say the pretty roster.
Right.
The whole thing is like
I was totally that way. Yeah.
No, but when you hit on the guys, then you got to keep them. It's worse than Devy. If you don't, for people that don't play Devy with college prospects and, college players are on your roster and draftable. And a lot of the annual draft is about drafting college players that, man, like you see these owners, they will hit on a prospect. And by hitting, I mean, they get high draft capital or they get barely into the NFL. They start doing a little something and they want to trade him for 3 other Devy players or a drove of picks or something that has not shown anything NFL wise yet. And so all you're doing is spinning your wheels. You hit on a player and now you were the farm system, as the phrase goes, to somebody else. That's just, so what are you doing? I always just say, what is your goal? When is your goal? Like, I joined some of these orphans and you try to build them up. I mean, yeah, you might have a year that doesn't go too well when you first take it over. You're trying to reconstruct it in your mind's eye. But year 2, I mean, come on, you got to start contending. That's the way it goes. I mean, you can't take over a team and say, oh, arrival date 3 years from now. How long are you going to donate? I mean, That's a long time to do trades and try to, I'm just going to get this 101 and that's going to change everything for me. I don't think it changes anything if your DNA as a GM is not right.
Right.
You can have as many 101s as you want.
Right. If you're not trying to contend in as you sit here right now, if you're not trying to contend in 2022, you're doing Dynasty wrong.
Yeah. Figure it out.
Right.
Figure it out. There's a way to do it. I love that quote you had. I think you told it on the show. You were like, someone was looking to rebuild or contend the next year, and they just took a bunch of running backs. and you're like, oh, well, now they're in the playoffs. They're in the playoffs, so they won the league the next year. It's like, oh, wow.
Right.
I didn't have to get a bunch of 22-year-old wide receivers with day 3 pedigree. I thought that was the way you did it.
Right.
All right. So yeah, again, just a couple of trades this week, one quote, but there's a lot of meat on the bone as usual. Talked a little bit about Stefon Diggs, AJ Brown, of course, Leonard Fournette, and go back to the beginning of the show, a drove of running backs that may or may not be out there on your waiver wire this week, but also next week. Like Jordan said, and I think that's most apt, you've got to dial in every week and basically every day from here until your season on for all of your leagues being complete. That's the rule. Optimize. All right. So for Jordan McNamara, myself, Chad Parsons, until next time, good luck in your Dynasty leagues. Red.
Oh, we got to get a picture of you hanging that high with the